Now, in this presentation, I'd like to do a comparison between public transport and cars. Now, public transport is also known as transit. So, first of all, when you're traveling by public transport, you can just generally get on with your life. Most people have mobile devices these days. You can just get on with checking your emails, you can text people, you can safely make phone calls, you can maybe even work on a laptop. You can actually get on with your work. Whatever your work is, and you can also doze, so you can just relax, just doze for a bit. It's a often very relaxing way to travel, whereas driving time is generally downtime. While you're driving, your life is pretty much on hold. There are a few things you can do. You could maybe make a phone call, but only if it's safe. You should not be using a mobile device. That is actually illegal in many jurisdictions while you're driving. So really, there's not a lot you can do when you're driving. So even though the journey time might be quicker, your life is on hold. And so that journey time is just complete downtime. Whereas on public transport, the journey may take longer. However, in some cases it does not. But in any case, while you're traveling on public transport, you can just get on with your life in most cases. Secondly, traveling by public transport is generally not delayed. And even if it is delayed, you often have information. You can get information. The service provider will provide you with that information, or you can check online to see what's happening when things are delayed. But in any case, delays are not that common in many developed countries. You can look at the statistics that the service providers will provide for you, and you'll see that in most cases, journeys actually do run on time. It is a very efficient way to travel. For example, for trains, they don't get delayed because they are on a dedicated railway line. You're not getting delayed because of traffic on that line, because the railway line is just for that train to get from A to B. For buses, they often have their own dedicated travel lanes. They have bus lanes, so they're not getting held up by cars. Cars, on the other hand, cause traffic jams by their size and their sheer numbers. Delays are common, especially at peak hours. Even just getting delayed by the traffic lights, getting held up in traffic, it's actually very common. But people don't talk about this because it's just part of the life of driving. But it is a delay. So where you're getting delayed in traffic, that is actually a delay to your journey. Public transport is generally more efficient. You can get many more people into the vehicles. So many people can ride on a single bus or on a single train, and so therefore these are more efficient. Many cars, on the other hand, only contain a single occupant. The most that you can get into a vehicle is 4 or at a push 5 people. So there's a big difference in efficiency there, in the number of people that you can get from A to B. Using this mode of transport. Now, there's an effect whereby the more people that use public transport, the more efficient the system becomes. Okay, so the more people that use the buses, the fares become cheaper. The number of services increases, becomes more. The services become more frequent, and so travel is easier. Whereas with driving, the more people that drive, the worse the system becomes. Many roads have actually got to capacity or are over capacity, and so the traffic just comes to a standstill. It's a finite amount that you can get onto a road. Whereas with public transport, the more people use it, the more efficient it becomes. Whereas with cars, the more people use it, the less efficient it becomes. Due to the purpose of transport, service is actually more frequent at peak hours. So the times when people need to be traveling. So typically getting to work in the morning or coming home in the afternoon. This is when the services are at their most frequent for public transport, and so travel is generally smoother and faster and more efficient at these times. And these are the times when most people need to travel. Whereas with cars, at these peak times when people are getting to and from work, travel is the most difficult and most inefficient during these hours. Now, public transport is way cheaper than travelling by car, because first of all you have to buy the car. Cars are very expensive to purchase. You then pay the tax, the insurance, the maintenance, the fuel, the parking. All of these things add up. And so, for example, where I live, I could travel for a whole month for just less than 100 Canadian dollars. And that covers all of my travel. I can get out to the mountains, get to the beaches, go to the lakes. This is my travel to and from work. This is my travel everywhere. So traveling at weekends and evenings, all of my social life, all for a nice within $100. Now, for many people, one of the big advantages of using public transport is that you can have a drink. It's okay to have a drink before using public transport, whereas you can't drink alcohol when you're going to drive. Now, one of the great things about public transport is that you can just sit back and relax and let somebody else drive. You can have a snooze, gaze out of the window, do some daydreaming, even get some sleep. It's a very restful way to travel most of the time. Whereas driving is often very stressful. You have to stay alert, you have to watch the road. Even for passengers, people can often feel ill when they're traveling by car. So it's not pleasant in comparison. Also, car driving is restricted to a subset of the population. Those that are too young or too old do not drive. And those that are physically or mentally incapacitated in some way, mentally ill, mentally handicapped, often are not able to drive either. And there are also those who simply don't like driving. They find it too stressful, for example. One or two people I know just don't like driving at night. And there are also those who just can't afford to buy a car. In a car culture, these people are often deprived of the means of independent travel and have to rely upon someone who owns a car to get them about. This is not good. This is not good for our society. Public transport, on the other hand, provides the means for a much wider spectrum of people to get about.